Okay, thank you. So it's a privilege to be here and share with you, even it's like we're looking for a lunch now, but okay. So I'm talking about lesbian studies in Portugal and some reflections around it. So first, I will give you the Portuguese context because it's not a well-known country. So if I was talking about USA or England, United Kingdom, so everybody would know something about the specificities of the country, but not from Portugal. So I'll give you some context. So we can, just to show you that we have had in the final year, since 2000 especially, some noteworthy advances in legal measures of equality regarding LGBTIQ rights. I want to highlight some of these advances, particularly in 2009, we have the inclusion of sexual orientation subjects in sexual education in schools. So it's very important and still on. You never know when there's a backlash, looking for it, but we have the marriage of same-sex couples. Also, in 2004, we have in the constitution of the country, we have the principle for equality, specifically, they say sexual orientation. So it's a very important advance also. And we have the gender identity law also. 2011, they still demanded some psychiatric or something evaluation, but 2018 is basically on a self-identity. So someone can change her name or anything in the citizen card just by saying, I feel like a man or woman. So it's an advance in gender identity, and also an adoption and co-adoption and medically assisted procreation in 2016. So you can see in late years, we have moved quite forward, which is very important. But activism in Portugal is not, that whole. You know that in 74, we had the revolution, the Carnation Revolution. We had some almost 50 years of dictatorship, and then we changed. And but only in after the 90s, it took a long time, even after the revolution, to have an active LGBT movement in Portugal. And we can see that mostly it came because of the AIDS epidemic. That's when it started in the middle 90s. And only after 1996, then we really have a well-established LGBT movement. So you see quite recent compared with other countries. And just a note on the Pride events, which is a visible aspect of the activism, only also from 2000s and forward, we have had some big movements and street demonstrations, which is a visible side of what is happening in activism. So now we are really active. But one thing that is important, it is in Portugal, we do not have almost no funding in the LGBT associations, NGO associations at all, including LGBT. So it's only a small number of individuals, no financial support, so they have to work and then they have to be activists at the same time. So they're volunteers. So obviously this limits the capacity to intervene in the society, to design and implement new projects. Now, recently they have gained some funding, so we'll expect that things will change. But even in the LGBTIQ associations, we still have prevailing sexism. So it's, well, they reproduce the social context in which they exist. So sexism and male dominance are a pervasive reality, even within LGBT organizations, which is very interesting. I think in other countries it's the same, because we think about the minority and everything. Things should be different because people feel discrimination in their own lives, but still the same. So specific lesbian issues are rarely afforded the same prominence as gay issues. So just one example, in Portugal, the word gay is specifically for men, not like in other countries, it's homosexuals. And all the media, when it talks about the wedding, the law in 2010 was talking about the gay wedding, not almost not homosexual, you know, not same-sex marriage. So it's very interesting. Well, and it's an evidence of this sexist view. Eh? But it's the activism. Now let's look at the academia. Well, we don't have many gender studies. We don't have many LGBT studies. So it's a small country, small academia, but well, it could be better anyway, no doubt. Of course, we talk about intersectionality a lot. Now it's the buzzword. Everyone talks about it, but not always really talking about intersectionality. We use the word, but sometimes it does not really include all diversity. You see that many studies in LGBT issues do not address gender issues. So, which means that we have an incomplete view of reality. When you talk about LGBT, it seems that it's all equal, like LGBTIQ, it's all the same. It's not the same. It's an umbrella, and it's been used because of political change and activist change. But the reality of people's lives is quite different. To be a lesbian, to be a gay, to be a trans man or trans woman, it's different. It makes a difference in your lives. And sometimes even academia, even in the research, does not identify these differences. So we know that the personal is political, well, but all the academic is political. Not always we take the stand as academics. And we know that, well, in Portugal, at least, no research on lesbian studies is quite invisible, no, not present. We have an example, something it's different. It's the only evidence of lesbian studies in Portugal. There was a digital journal on lesbian studies only from a few years. It was you can still find it on this web, the archive of the numbers in that website. But now it has moved from an independent journal to a section to Revista Latino-Americana, Geography and Gender, a Brazilian journal. So you have made this association. As we all know, journals and academic publication is now a major economical, work. Not really sometimes so academic. It's more so big publishing companies. So small journals, it's almost impossible to have someone publishing them. But let's say about the intersections. We can see that in the equality policies, and sometimes even research, they reinforce these binary and heterosexual, homosexual, because they do not address the symmetries, the gender asymmetries that we find. So it would be very, very important that academic and research could really identify these differences. So we almost have invisibility of lesbians. So we talk about homonormativity. It affects differently gays and lesbians. We know, of course, and we have this experience that rights and direct absence, the discrimination, are lived in everyday practices. So I think research should address, and this the potential of lesbian studies. Where do we live? How do we live? In what context? With which people? What is your degree of autonomy? In what space do we live? What free time do you have? What mobility? As you can see, these are gender issues, completely gender issues. I've been talking about the difference between men and women, so also between gays and lesbians. So we know that these everyday practices we're talking about are simultaneously the locus of domination, but also the possibility of resistance, of making a change. So research could contribute to that. No? So it is in everyday practices that we talk the micropolitics of urban life, mobility, interaction, that offers the possibility to change, and this negotiation of these politics of everyday lives really can make a difference. And I think lesbian studies could really contribute to that. So this is one of the points that my argument is it is in the scale of everyday lives that resides a potential for resistance to heteronormativity and homonormative culture. But it is very important to understand that lesbian studies could really contribute to that, no? So how the moving the spatial dimension of identities, for me, it's very important because I come from social and cultural geography. So how we move in space and how space contributes to our identity and how identities make a space. In the LGBT issues, it's very important to understand what are the spaces that people feel safe or not safe. So the spatial aspect of identity is particularly present to LGBTIQ people. And particularly to lesbians, because the intersections of gender and sexuality, this is particularly relevant. So I think we could do more research on political dimensions of everyday practices and the potential to resist and change, because we know that it's in the scale of everyday life, in the way you use space and the city, and the emotions, also the emotional geography and the emotional spaces and sensory experience that lies the highest visibility of lesbian and the potential of lesbian studies to highlight the intersections between gender and sexuality. Because I still often see that the LGBTIQ studies do not address gender inequalities. And this should be a very important issue. So that is my argument. Lesbian studies are so important, and I'm working on them for a long time now. And of course, in this particular context of Portugal and the Iberian, like Spain, Portugal, and also Latin America, because we have the language and the cultural proximity. But I think it would be a very important contribution if more people would look into specifically, and also not only gender and sexuality, but also the color, skin color and everything. All other dimension of intersectionality is very important and not often addressed. So research often contributes to this idea, the LGBTQ, like the same, it's a group. It's not, there's specificities, and if you look into it, you can further understand intersectionality, how it really works in everyday life. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed it.